and entertainment convene among an iconic range of superior design, structures, and artistic accomplishments. And American ingenuity blossoms among determined citizens who race across city streets and between offices, striving for success.
Princess Kate's 5 words to Melania Trump just broke the internet, and you won't believe what happened next. Royal insiders are calling it the most shocking moment in modern history. Melania's reaction? Priceless. The palace tried to keep this quiet, but the truth leaked, and it's absolutely insane.
I wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you personally for all the wonderful messages of support and for your understanding whilst I've been recovering from surgery. It has been an incredibly tough couple of months for our entire family, but I've had a fantastic medical team who have taken great care of me, for which I'm so grateful.
These 5 simple words destroyed decades of protocol and left the world in complete meltdown. Was it a warning, a threat, or something even more explosive? What Kate revealed will make your jaw drop. When President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump touched down at Windsor Castle in September 2025, the world watched closely. This wasn't just another diplomatic visit. It marked an unprecedented moment in history, as Trump became the first United States president ever to receive a second state visit to the United Kingdom. The significance of this gesture from King Charles wasn't lost on anyone. State visits are rare, carefully orchestrated events reserved for strengthening the most important international relationships. For the palace to extend this invitation a second time sent a clear message about the enduring bond between the two nations, despite the complex political landscape. The helicopter carrying the American couple descended onto the manicured lawns of Windsor Castle on a crisp autumn day. As Marine One's rotor slowed to a stop, the door opened to reveal the president and his wife, ready to begin 3 days of ceremonial engagements, political discussions, and carefully choreographed moments of diplomatic theater. But what awaited them that day would prove to be anything but typical protocol. Standing on the lawn to greet them were Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales. The choice of greeters was itself noteworthy. While King Charles and Queen Camilla would join them shortly, the initial welcome fell to the younger generation of royals. Catherine looked elegant in a carefully chosen ensemble that balanced formality with approachability, while William stood beside her with the ease of someone who had performed this particular duty many times before. As Trump stepped off the helicopter, he raised his hand in a characteristic salute before approaching the waiting royals. The first handshake went to William, whom Trump greeted warmly. Then he turned to Catherine, and what happened next would become one of the most talked about moments of the visit. According to lip readers who analyzed the footage, Trump took the princess's hand and told her directly that she looked beautiful, not once, but twice. The comment was captured on camera and quickly circulated around the world, sparking debates about diplomatic etiquette and appropriate greetings for members of the royal family. Catherine, ever the professional, showed no visible reaction to the personal remark. She maintained her composure perfectly, transitioning smoothly to greet Melania with a warm handshake. The 4 of them then walked together across the grass toward the castle, where the king and queen waited to complete the formal welcome. It was a moment that set the tone for what would become a fascinatingly unconventional state visit. The personal nature of Trump's greeting raised eyebrows among royal watchers and protocol experts. There are no strict legal requirements for how someone must greet a member of the royal family, but there are certainly conventions. Most visiting dignitaries opt for more formal language, perhaps complimenting the occasion or expressing gratitude for the welcome. Personal comments about physical appearance, while not technically breaking any rules, definitely push the boundaries of what's considered appropriate in diplomatic circles. Royal historian Justin Vovic explained to news outlets that while Trump didn't breach any official protocol, his comment did transgress what might be called the unofficial rules of personal diplomacy. The princess, having dealt with public attention her entire adult life, handled it with the grace that has become her trademark. She neither encouraged nor discouraged the comment, simply moving the moment forward with practiced ease. This wasn't the first time Trump and Catherine had met. During his first state visit to the United Kingdom years earlier, they had been introduced at various functions. But this visit felt different. There was history now, a sense of familiarity that hadn't existed before. Catherine had also been through her own journey since they last met. She had publicly shared her cancer diagnosis in early 2024, undergone chemotherapy, and by January 2025, announced that her cancer was in remission. The road back to full public duties had been gradual and carefully managed. Trump would reference Catherine's health journey later that evening at the formal state banquet. In his official speech, broadcast to audiences around the world, he described the princess as radiant, healthy, and beautiful, while she sat to his right at the elaborate dinner. The seating arrangement itself was strategic, placing Catherine next to the American president, while King Charles sat on his other side. Throughout the meal, photographers captured the two in animated conversation, with Catherine appearing relaxed and engaged despite the formal setting. The banquet was everything one expects from a royal state occasion. Windsor Castle's grand rooms glowed with candlelight. The table settings featured historic silver and crystal. Over 160 guests attended, representing government officials, business leaders, and key figures from both nations. The dress code demanded formal evening wear, and both Catherine and Melania rose to the occasion with stunning gowns that would be analyzed by fashion commentators for days afterward. But beyond the glitter and ceremony of that Wednesday evening, something else was being planned for the following day. While Trump would depart for political meetings with Prime Minister Keir Starmer at the country estate of Chequers, Melania would remain at Windsor for a series of engagements with members of the royal family. The morning would see Queen Camilla giving the First Lady a private tour of some of Windsor's treasures, including Queen Mary's famous doll's house and the Royal Library. However, it was the afternoon engagement that generated the most interest. For the first time in her role as First Lady during this visit, Melania would spend time alone, with just one member of the royal family, without other senior royals present. And the person chosen for this honor was Catherine, Princess of Wales. The decision to have Catherine host Melania solo was remarkable. It demonstrated the enormous trust and confidence the palace had in the princess's diplomatic abilities and personal warmth. Royal observers noted that this kind of responsibility isn't handed out lightly. Hosting a visiting First Lady requires not just impeccable manners and conversation skills, but also the ability to represent the monarchy's values while creating genuine connection. It's a delicate balance between being welcoming and maintaining the dignity of the institution. The fact that Catherine was given this task, without the safety net of other senior royals nearby, spoke volumes about her standing within the family and her proven track record in public engagements. The announcement that the two women would visit Frogmore Gardens together sparked immediate interest. Frogmore, located on the Windsor estate, is less formal than the castle itself. Its beautiful gardens and natural setting suggested a different kind of visit, one focused less on ceremony and more on authentic interaction. The itinerary revealed they would meet with young children from the Scouts organization, specifically the Squirrels program designed for 4 to 6-year-olds. Both women had reasons to feel invested in such an engagement. Catherine had long championed early childhood development as a central pillar of her royal work. Since marrying Prince William in 2011, she had launched multiple initiatives focused on giving children the best possible start in life. Her Royal Foundation Center for Early Childhood had become a respected voice in conversations about mental health, education, and child welfare. Just months earlier, her foundation had unveiled Happy Little Minds, a program bringing mental health support to disadvantaged communities in London. Melania, too, had made children's welfare a cornerstone of her public role. Her Be Best campaign in the United States focused on children's well-being, online safety, and opioid abuse prevention. More recently, she had been involved with the Trump administration's efforts to integrate artificial intelligence education into American schools. At a White House task force meeting earlier that month, she had spoken about living in a moment of wonder and the responsibility to prepare American children for an AI-driven future. So as Thursday morning dawned over Windsor, anticipation built for what would happen when these two women, both mothers, both advocates for children, spent time together away from the cameras and crowds that usually define such visits. What nobody could have predicted was just how revealing their private conversation would become, thanks to the careful observations of professional lip readers studying the footage. The words exchanged that afternoon would offer a rare glimpse into the values and concerns that united two very different women from opposite sides of the Atlantic. The autumn air carried a gentle chill as Catherine and Melania arrived at Frogmore Gardens on Thursday afternoon. The historic estate, nestled within the Windsor grounds, offered a stark contrast to the formal grandeur of the castle, where the state banquet had taken place just hours earlier. Here, ancient trees provided a canopy over winding paths, and open lawns stretched toward carefully maintained garden beds. It was the kind of setting that invited relaxation rather than rigid formality. And that seemed to be exactly the point. Both women had dressed for the occasion with practical elegance. Catherine wore a cropped khaki jacket layered over a matching knit vest, paired with tailored trousers and brown knee-high boots with pointed toes and block heels. The outfit marked a clear shift into her autumn wardrobe, practical enough for outdoor activities, yet polished enough to maintain royal standards. A patterned scarf tied neatly at her neckline added a final touch of refinement without feeling overdone. Melania chose a tailored tan blazer featuring utility pockets and a belted waist, combining it with slim trousers and classic tan flats. The similarity in their color palettes wasn't lost on observers. Both had opted for earthy, neutral tones that allowed them to blend into the natural setting, while maintaining their characteristic sense of style. As they walked together through the gardens, photographers captured images that would quickly circulate across social media and news outlets worldwide. What struck people immediately was how at ease both women appeared. There was no visible tension, no awkward silences or forced smiles. Instead, the body language suggested two people genuinely enjoying each other's company. They walked side by side, occasionally leaning toward each other in conversation, their expressions open and engaged. Waiting for them in a clearing within the gardens was Chief Scout Dwayne Fields, along with members of the Scout Squirrels program. The Squirrels represent the youngest branch of the Scouting movement, designed specifically for children aged 4 to 6. On this particular day, the youngsters were working toward earning their Go Wild badge, an achievement that requires learning about and engaging with the natural world. The children had set up various activities around the space, and their excitement at having such distinguished visitors was palpable. Catherine needed no prompting to join in. Those who have followed her public work over the years know that she has always been particularly natural around children. Rather than maintaining a careful distance as some might expect from a future queen, she moved immediately into the center of the action. Within moments, she was kneeling on the grass beside small groups of children, asking them about their projects and showing genuine interest in their answers. The sight of the Princess of Wales sitting cross-legged among 5- and 6-year-olds, examining their leaf collages and listening intently as they explained their insect hotels, created exactly the kind of informal atmosphere that had been hoped for. Melania watched this interaction for a moment before following Catherine's lead. A shy little girl approached the First Lady and gently took her hand, tugging her toward one of the activity tables. What happened next surprised many observers who had grown accustomed to seeing Melania maintain a more reserved public persona. She allowed herself to be led by the child, settling down at the table where youngsters were busy creating eco-themed artwork. Soon, she was laughing alongside them, asking questions about their creations, and appearing thoroughly immersed in the moment. The children had been working on a nature-based art project that involved pressing leaves covered in ink onto paper. It was messy, creative work that required patience and produced unpredictable results. Both Catherine and Melania joined in without hesitation, picking up leaves, examining the patterns of veins and edges, and helping the children press them carefully onto their papers. The images captured during these moments showed something remarkable. Here were two of the most photographed, most analyzed women in the world, both willingly getting their hands dirty, while surrounded by excited children chattering about beetles and bird nests. Royal enthusiasts who had followed Catherine's work for years weren't particularly surprised by her easy rapport with the youngsters. She had demonstrated this ability countless times before at school visits, early year centers, and community programs. But for Melania, this represented something different. Many people who watched the footage and saw the photographs later commented that they had never seen the First Lady look quite so relaxed and genuinely happy in a public setting. One social media user captured the sentiment many felt when they wrote about seeing Melania looking like a completely different person, comfortable and at ease in a way that seemed unusual for her public appearances. Body language experts who analyzed the footage noted interesting dynamics between the two women. While Catherine naturally took a slight lead in the interactions, guiding where they went and what they did, Melania appeared entirely comfortable following that lead. There was none of the stiffness or guarded quality that sometimes characterized her public appearances back in the United States. Instead, she seemed genuinely engaged with both the children and with Catherine herself. Chief Scout Dwayne Fields, who spent the afternoon with both women, later shared his observations with reporters. He noted that Catherine frequently mentioned her own 3 children during their time together. George, Charlotte, and Louis were clearly never far from her thoughts, and she naturally wove stories about them into her conversations with both the children and with Melania. Fields explained that this is something the princess often does, using her experiences as a mother to build connections with young people and to show them that even someone in her position shares the same kinds of family moments they do. What particularly struck Fields was that Melania responded in kind. Rather than maintaining the careful distance that often characterizes diplomatic exchanges, she opened up about her own experiences as a mother. She asked Catherine questions about raising children in the public eye, shared her own stories, and showed genuine curiosity about the princess's perspective on parenting. The conversation flowed naturally, moving from lighthearted anecdotes to more thoughtful reflections on the challenges and joys of motherhood. The centerpiece of the afternoon's activities turned out to be a lively parachute game with the children. If you've ever attended an elementary school field day or children's party, you've probably seen this game. A large, colorful parachute is held around its edges by participants who work together to make waves, lifting it high into the air. Lightweight balls are placed on top, and children scramble underneath to knock them out while the parachute billows above them. It's chaotic, energetic, and almost impossible to participate in without laughing. Catherine joined the game wholeheartedly, crouching low to hold the parachute edge and calling out encouragement to the children scrambling beneath the rippling fabric. Melania, perhaps initially more hesitant, quickly caught the infectious energy of the moment. Photographers captured both women laughing as children squealed with delight, balls bouncing in every direction, the parachute creating a rainbow canopy over the scene. These images would become some of the most widely shared from the entire state visit, precisely because they showed something rare. 2 global figures completely absorbed in the simple joy of playing with children. Throughout the afternoon, Catherine demonstrated a personal touch that had become characteristic of her approach to royal engagements. She had arranged for special packed lunches to be provided for the children, and these weren't just standard sandwiches thrown together by catering staff. The lunches included items made with honey from the royal family's own beehives at Anmer Hall, the country home in Norfolk where Catherine and William raised their family. It was exactly the kind of thoughtful detail that shows someone isn't just going through the motions, but actually cares about creating a memorable experience. The children, of course, were thrilled with this special treat. As they sat on the grass eating their lunches, Catherine moved among them, chatting about what they liked and didn't like, what they wanted to be when they grew up, and what their favorite parts of being squirrels had been so far. Melania did the same, and observers noted how naturally she interacted with the youngsters, once the formal barriers had been broken down by the shared activities. At one point, while admiring the artwork the children had created throughout the afternoon, Melania spoke about how some of the pieces reminded her of her own childhood memories. Catherine listened attentively, encouraging the First Lady to share more about those memories, and offering her own reflections about watching her children discover nature and express themselves through art. It was the kind of conversation that could happen between any two mothers watching children play. Yet it was taking place between a future queen and an American First Lady, representing nations separated by an ocean but united by fundamental human experiences. The warmth between Catherine and Melania didn't go unnoticed by those present. Fields later commented that Catherine has a particular gift for making people feel comfortable by sharing pieces of her own life. By talking about George's latest interest, or Charlotte's personality, or Louis's amusing habits, she creates common ground that transcends titles and positions. Melania, he noted, was exactly the same that day. She was curious, open, and warm in ways that perhaps surprised those who had only seen her in more formal, guarded settings. As the afternoon at Frogmore Gardens unfolded, cameras captured countless moments between Catherine and Melania. The two women moved through the various activities with the children, their conversations appearing animated and genuine. But what exactly were they saying to each other? The footage showed them leaning close, speaking intently, and nodding in agreement, yet the words themselves remained private, or so it seemed at first. Professional lip readers, specialists trained to interpret speech by analyzing mouth movements and facial expressions, studied the video footage carefully. What they uncovered offered a fascinating glimpse into a conversation that might otherwise have remained entirely private. The dialogue revealed by these experts painted a picture of two women connecting over shared concerns that transcended politics, nationality, and their very different roles on the world stage. According to lip reader Nicola Hickling, who provided detailed analysis of the footage, the conversation between Catherine and Melania turned serious as they discussed the children they were spending time with and the broader questions of education and child welfare. While cameras captured them watching the youngsters work on their nature projects, Catherine spoke thoughtfully about what she was observing and what it meant to her. The princess reportedly said that it gave her great comfort knowing all of these children were encapsulated in educational spaces. She continued, explaining that things can become quite overbearing, and that what matters is being able to tend to the individual child, rather than getting caught up in a mentality of needing to accomplish this task or that requirement. The statement reflected something Catherine has spoken about publicly many times over the years. Her work in early childhood development consistently emphasizes the importance of seeing each child as a unique individual with specific needs, rather than treating education as a one-size-fits-all system. Catherine added her thoughts about the Scouts organization specifically, saying that the work they do is incredible. This wasn't empty praise meant for diplomatic purposes. The princess has long been a supporter of programs that get children outdoors, encourage hands-on learning, and build confidence through practical skills and achievement. The Scouts' approach aligns closely with her own philosophy about childhood development and the importance of experiences beyond traditional classroom settings. Melania listened carefully as Catherine spoke. Then, as the camera angle shifted slightly, the First Lady offered her own response. According to Hickling's analysis, Melania acknowledged that she understood exactly what Catherine meant. She said that it's the same situation in America. They can't let the system get too big and impersonal. Then she added something that struck at the heart of what both women clearly believed. They owe this to their children. It was a simple statement, but one that carried significant weight. In those few words, Melania was expressing a philosophy that transcended her role as First Lady or her political position. She was speaking as someone who believed fundamentally that adults have a responsibility to the next generation. The exchange highlighted remarkable common ground between two women whose lives and circumstances might seem worlds apart. Catherine, born into a comfortable but not aristocratic British family, had married into royalty and built a public role focused on using her platform to advocate for children's welfare. Melania, a former model from Slovenia who became an American First Lady, had similarly chosen to focus her public efforts on children's well-being through her Be Best campaign. Their paths to influence had been completely different, yet they had arrived at strikingly similar conclusions about what mattered most. But the conversation didn't end there. After Melania's response about owing children a better system, Catherine offered something more, According to the lip-reading analysis, the princess made a statement that would become the focal point of news coverage once it was revealed. She said, with conviction in her expression, that she had hoped they could meet their needs. 5 words: simple, direct, and powerful. I hope we can meet their needs. Those 5 words encapsulated so much of what Catherine has tried to communicate through her years of work on early childhood issues. Hope is not a passive concept in this context. It's not wishful thinking or naive optimism. Instead, it represents a deliberate choice to believe that meaningful change is possible, that the systems and structures surrounding children can be improved, and that the work being done by people like the Scouts leaders they were spending time with can make a real difference. The message also revealed something important about Catherine's approach to her role. She could have offered platitudes about children being the future, or made generic statements about the importance of education. Instead, she spoke with specificity and emotional honesty. She acknowledged the challenges, the ways systems can become overbearing, and lose sight of individual children. But rather than ending on that note of concern, she pivoted to hope and to the belief that those needs can actually be met. For observers who have followed Catherine's work closely, the statement felt entirely consistent with her long-term efforts. Since marrying into the royal family in 2011, she has used her position to shine a spotlight on early childhood development in ways that go beyond ribbon-cutting ceremonies and photo opportunities. Her Royal Foundation Center for Early Childhood has commissioned research, brought together experts from various fields, and worked to shift public understanding of how critical those first 5 years of life are for long-term outcomes. Just months before this conversation with Melania, Catherine's foundation had launched the Happy Little Minds program. This initiative aimed to bring mental health support directly into disadvantaged communities in London, recognizing that children in different circumstances need different kinds of support. The program represented exactly the kind of individualized, community-based approach that Catherine had been discussing with Melania in the gardens. It wasn't about imposing solutions from above, but about meeting children where they are and providing what they specifically need. In August, shortly before the Trump state visit, the Center for Early Childhood had released a series of 7 animated educational videos. These weren't entertainment for entertainment's sake. They were carefully designed tools meant to help young children develop emotional resilience and social skills. The animations focused on helping children understand and manage their feelings, build healthy relationships, and develop the kind of emotional foundation that would serve them throughout their lives. Again, this reflected the same philosophy Catherine had expressed to Melania about focusing on individual development rather than just checking boxes on an educational checklist. Melania's own work, while operating in a different context, showed similar underlying principles. Her Be Best campaign, launched during Trump's first presidency, focused on 3 main pillars: children's well-being, online safety, and opioid abuse prevention. While critics had sometimes questioned the campaign's effectiveness or pointed out perceived contradictions with some of her husband's policies, the stated goals reflected genuine concerns about threats facing American children. More recently, Melania had become involved with the Trump administration's push to integrate artificial intelligence education into American schools. At a White House task force meeting in early September, she had spoken about living in what she called a moment of wonder. She emphasized that adults have a responsibility to prepare American children for a future shaped by artificial intelligence. The initiative, called the Presidential AI Challenge, aimed to engage parents, educators, and students in thinking about how to ensure young people would be equipped for an AI-driven economy and society. On the surface, AI education in American schools and early childhood mental health support in London might seem like very different concerns, but both reflected an underlying belief that children need adults who are thinking seriously about their futures and willing to put in the work to prepare them for whatever challenges lie ahead. Both women, in their different ways, were advocating for taking children's needs seriously and adapting systems to serve them better. The conversation revealed by the lip readers also highlighted something else. Despite the political polarization that often characterized discussions involving the Trump administration, And despite the sometimes complicated relationship between the United States and United Kingdom on policy matters, these two women found immediate common ground. They weren't talking about trade agreements or military alliances. They were talking about children, education, and the fundamental question of whether adults are doing enough to support the next generation. The fact that this conversation happened away from the formal settings of state banquets and official meetings mattered too. At Windsor Castle the previous evening, surrounded by dignitaries and government officials, both women had played their expected roles perfectly. Catherine had been every inch the gracious princess, and Melania had embodied the dignity expected of a first lady. But here in the gardens, with children running around them and artwork spread across tables, they could speak more freely about what actually concerned them. Chief Scout Dwayne Fields, who witnessed the interaction firsthand, later confirmed that the conversation between the two women had been substantive and genuine. He noted that both Catherine and Melania asked thoughtful questions about the Scouts' programs and seemed genuinely interested in understanding how the organization approached childhood education and development. They weren't just making polite small talk to fill time. They were engaged in a real dialogue about issues that clearly mattered to both of them. The revelation of Catherine's 5-word message spread quickly once lip readers shared their analysis. Social media filled with comments from people who found the statement moving, inspiring, or simply refreshingly honest. In an era when public figures often speak in carefully crafted sound bites designed to offend no one and commit to nothing, Catherine's straightforward expression of hope resonated with many who heard it. It suggested someone who hadn't become cynical despite years in the public eye, someone who still believed that positive change was possible if people committed themselves to it. The images and video clips from Frogmore Gardens began circulating online almost immediately after the engagement concluded. Within hours, social media platforms filled with comments, shares, and discussions about what people had witnessed. The response was overwhelmingly positive, and remarkably, much of the enthusiasm focused not on protocol or politics, but on the genuine human connection that seemed to have developed between Catherine and Melania. Royal fans who had followed Catherine's work for years praised her ability to create such a warm and welcoming atmosphere. Many pointed out that this wasn't the first time they had seen the princess put someone at ease, but watching her do so with an American First Lady during an official state visit felt particularly significant. Comments flooded the social media accounts of Kensington Palace, with people expressing admiration for how Catherine had handled what could have been an awkward or overly formal occasion, and instead transformed it into something meaningful. What surprised many observers was the reaction to Melania herself. Numerous people commented that they had never seen the First Lady look so comfortable and relaxed in a public setting. One widely shared comment captured this sentiment perfectly, noting that Melania looked like a different person, happy and at ease in ways that seemed unusual for her public appearances. Others thanked whoever managed the royal family's social media accounts for showing Melania in what they called a good light, appreciating the chance to see a side of her characterized by compassion and kindness, rather than the more guarded persona she often displayed. Several commenters reflected on what they saw as the fundamental similarity between the two women, despite their different backgrounds and roles. One person wrote about seeing two women who each possessed a genuine, loving, and nurturing spirit, expressing deep respect and admiration for both of them. This kind of commentary highlighted something important about the impact of the engagement. For at least some portion of the viewing public, the afternoon at Frogmore Gardens had succeeded in cutting through political divisions and national differences to reveal shared humanity and shared values. The revelation of Catherine's 5-word message added another layer to the public response. When lip readers shared their analysis of the private conversation between the two women, many people found Catherine's statement about having hope particularly moving. In a media environment often dominated by conflict, criticism, and pessimism, her straightforward expression of hope for meeting children's needs struck a chord. It felt authentic rather than calculated, a genuine reflection of her beliefs rather than a carefully crafted talking point designed for public consumption. Beyond the immediate social media reaction, the engagement and Catherine's message carried deeper significance for understanding her evolving role within the monarchy. Being entrusted with hosting a visiting First Lady alone, without other senior royals present for support or to share the responsibility, demonstrated the enormous confidence the palace had in her abilities. This wasn't a minor task or a ceremonial ribbon cutting. It was a diplomatic responsibility with real stakes for the relationship between two nations. Catherine's success in creating genuine connection, rather than merely fulfilling protocol requirements, showcased what many call the soft power of royal diplomacy. Hard power involves military might, economic leverage, and formal political negotiations. Soft power operates differently, working through cultural influence, personal relationships, and the ability to shape perceptions and attitudes. By hosting Melania in a way that emphasized shared values and authentic interaction, Catherine strengthened ties between the two nations at a human level that formal agreements and official statements cannot achieve. This approach to diplomacy aligned perfectly with the broader evolution of the monarchy under King Charles and the younger generation of royals. There's a growing emphasis on making the institution feel relevant and accessible while maintaining the dignity and tradition that give it meaning. Catherine's ability to be both a future queen and someone who sits cross-legged on the grass making leaf art with children represents exactly this balance. She embodies continuity with the past while adapting to contemporary expectations about authenticity and connection. The impact extended beyond Catherine herself to shape perceptions of Melania as well. For the First Lady, the engagement provided an opportunity to be seen in a new light by an international audience. Away from the intense scrutiny and political polarization that characterized coverage of her in the United States, she could be viewed simply as a woman who cared about children and education. The footage of her laughing with youngsters, sitting at their art tables, and engaging naturally with Catherine presented a version of Melania Trump that many people, particularly outside America, hadn't encountered before. The partnership between the two women, though brief, left a lasting impression that extended beyond the immediate news cycle. It served as a reminder that even in highly formal settings governed by centuries of protocol, genuine human connection remains possible. The bonds of motherhood, shared concern for children's welfare, and commitment to similar causes can create moments of authentic understanding that transcend political differences and national boundaries. Catherine's 5-word message became something of a touchstone for understanding her approach to her role and her work. Having hope that we can meet children's needs isn't a passive sentiment. It requires believing that change is possible, that systems can be improved, that individual efforts and initiatives can make real differences in young lives. It demands a willingness to commit time, energy, and influence to causes that may not produce immediate visible results, but that shape the foundation of society over generations. For those who study the monarchy and its evolution, the Frogmore Gardens engagement offered valuable insights into how the institution maintains relevance in the modern world. The combination of tradition and accessibility, formal responsibility and genuine emotion, ceremonial duty and authentic connection represents the careful balance that will likely define the monarchy's future. Catherine's ability to navigate this balance while representing Britain on the world stage with both warmth and dignity suggests she is well prepared for the greater responsibilities that will eventually come her way. The memorable afternoon at Windsor ultimately transcended its immediate purpose as part of a state visit. It became a moment that revealed Catherine's growing influence within the monarchy, her remarkable diplomatic capabilities, and her authentic commitment to the causes she champions. For Melania, it offered a chance to connect with someone who understood the unique pressures of public life while sharing her passion for children's welfare. Together, they created something unexpected and valuable, a brief partnership that reminded observers around the world that leadership at its best involves not just managing crises or negotiating agreements, but also fostering hope, building relationships, and keeping sight of what truly matters for future generations.